The quickest way to learn is to deal with other-selves. This is a much greater catalyst than dealing with the self. Dealing with the self without other-selves is akin to living without what you would call mirrors. Thus, the self cannot see the fruits of its beingness. Thus, each may aid each by reflection. Session 19.13 from the raw material, The Law of One. Hello, fellow seekers and friends. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice podcast. My name is Elle. I am back from a little 1-week vacation, visiting family and getting out into the nature and realigning myself with what is good with the world and not being so stressed. So I hope you hear it in my voice. I am feeling pretty good now, feeling the love, and I am here to I suppose share some things that are relevant to my life, such as dealing with other-selves and what was kind of causing some of the friction with me in the last few weeks. Basically, as it is with most cases, whenever you're dealing with other people or other-selves, as they like to call it in this material, to remind us that other-selves are also us and we are them and vice versa, as whatever way you would like to put it, but reminding us of the unity of creation. And dealing with other-selves is one of the biggest catalysts that we have in this third density which we currently inhabit, and I would like to talk about that. The reason why is because sometimes it's a major pain point, but like they say, the quickest way to learn is to deal with other-selves. You could lock yourself away in a cave, and possibly if you had the right kind of will power to know and to seek and to grow, you would probably grow, but it is much more fruitful, let's say, to be challenged by others and to have them mirror things to us and us mirror things back to them, and through that reflection hopefully grow into larger, wider point of view beings. And so I would like to sort of give you some clarity as to the situation we find ourselves in this third density by explaining to you what the next density is like, the next density of experience which we will eventually inhabit. So they talk about how the fourth density, we are all revealed to self, like we are transparent to each other. We can't hide things from each other like we can in this third density where we are sort of behind a veil, you might think of it as, and our true motives can be hidden, or they can, I like to say that we live in Shadowland. So because of that, because we don't fully know each other, we don't know each other's perceptions, and all we can do is assume. All we can do is basically project our understandings onto others, and others can project their understandings onto us. No matter how pure of a seeker and how awesome you think you are at perceiving other selves, dealing with other selves will be a constant surprise for you in learning about the ways that people may perceive you and the way that people may perceive themselves and the way that they see things about themselves. So I'm going to read you this quote from session 40.12. Ra mentions, "The fourth density is one of revealed information. Selves are not hidden to other self or other selves. The imbalances or distortions which are a destructive nature show, therefore, in more obvious ways, the vehicle of the mind-body-spirit complex, thus acting as a teaching resource for self-revelation. These illnesses, such as cancer, are correspondingly very amendable to self-healing once the mechanism of the destructive influence has been grasped by the individual." End of quote. And so they talk about that, that C word, obviously. I don't really want to talk about that too much, but just know that uninspected or undigested catalyst, maybe we could call it, that type of thing will have us in the long run, if we constantly ignore our catalyst, it can manifest in the body to basically get our attention. And so what they're saying here is that in the fourth density, we cannot necessarily hide from ourselves. Even ourselves are more transparent to ourselves. Sometimes we think we're doing a certain thing for a certain reason because we have these certain motives, but the true motive may be coming from a more egotistical place, a lower nature place where it's just sort of pretending to be a loving spiritual thing so that it can feel good about itself, when in reality it's just trying to control the situation or control other people, which we do not seek to do on the service to others path. We seek to accept and love other selves, not control them and manipulate them. So I compared that fourth density with the third density just to give you the understanding that, yeah, we are in Shadowland. We are shielded from each other, from knowing even ourselves sometimes, but specifically from other selves, right? We don't know each other's motives. We don't know exactly what the other person is thinking. All we can do is guess. But what's important to highlight is that that is what we are here for, my friends. We are here to learn and to grow. We aren't just here to be happy per se, right? So whenever we're interacting with other selves, I find that we are going to be receiving the largest catalyst that normally we have to deal with in our lives, in just various mirrors walking around this earth, offering their catalyst to us, and us being able to offer our catalyst to others. Which, guess what? I have a quote for you, my friends. So the general reason for incarnating is basically offering catalyst to other selves. So from session 52.9, Ross says, the overriding reason for the offering of these brothers and sisters of sorrow in incarnative states is the possibility of aiding other selves by the lightening of the planetary consciousness distortions and the probability of offering catalyst to other selves which will increase the harvest. End of quote. Lots of fancy words in there. If you're familiar with the loved one, it'll make sense. Brothers and sisters of sorrow are sort of wanderers or star seeds, maybe entities who have incarnated from higher densities, who have already gone through the third density, and they want to come back in order to lighten the planetary consciousness and or offer catalyst to other selves, which will increase the harvest. So harvest is sort of a scary word, I admit. However, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just I like to think as I like to garden myself, and I sort of see the creator as, the whole creation is a garden, and, the fruit shall bloom, and then what do we do when we get good fruit is we harvest it, and that harvest basically is us moving from the third density to the fourth density, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as it should be. So it's not to be a scary word or anything like that. It just is what it is. It's the word that they chose to use. But the point is that that's why we're here. We are here to offer catalyst to other selves, and as it may be, it always goes both ways. And so catalyst is offered to us by other selves all the same, and we are both mirrors for each other. And I'd like to muse on this mirror thing for each other, because it can be a tough thing to get your head around. I feel like there is sort of the toxic positivity spirituality, which just claims that every single person that talks bad about me or whatever is just projecting onto me. And I would like to state that yes, that's true. They are projecting onto you, but within their projections there may be some truth, right? Just because somebody's wrong about maybe even 90% of what they think about you or tell you about yourself, that doesn't mean that you can't pull out 10% of what they state as something valid, something that you go, hey, you know what, maybe that is true, maybe that is something I can work on. So that's the way I like to deal with other selves. I actually find some people giving me compliments on it, even where there will be, I do a lot of memeing and internet communication, let's say, with other selves, and I often get a lot of accusatory remarks from other people about my intent with sharing a certain type of meme or something along those lines, or a certain opinion, and they'll come and they'll attack you because they can do nothing but sort of project onto you, and so they think of you as a certain person, and they throw all these accusations at yourself and with some possible criticism. And so what I usually do, and I suggest to others, is you just ignore what is not helpful, right? You don't need to necessarily defend yourself. Why do you need to defend yourself to a projection? Better off is to try to see where you can communicate with them on a more understanding level, a level that isn't just being defensive about the self, saying, who are you to tell me about anything, what about you, blah, 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 blah. Instead, what I try to do is ignore the things that are only going to lead to nothing. They're going to lead into a dead end. Why not try to take the one little bit of something that they said that is valid or even partially valid and bring it up and talk about it. And often what you'll find is that when you ignore the sort of incorrect accusations coming your way and you focus on something positive or constructive about what the other person is trying to tell you, you often will get them giving you good feedback, and they will, possibly even possibly even apologize at the end for some of their, more off-the-handle accusations that they had at the beginning, and they'll probably be a lot happier that instead of you just doing what most people do online, which is just throw insult for insult, that you try to take them seriously and try to have a talk of a nature that is helpful, that is moves towards love and understanding, as is the fourth density. Like the fourth chakra is the lessons of love and understanding, and that's sort of what we are working on once we get our first three basic chakras in line, and we've made the choice to serve others or to serve the self. Assuming you're listening to this, you've chosen the service to others path, and so we've made that choice, and now we work with the mirrors, and we work with love and understanding, and trying to be good people and good-hearted folks. And so that is wonderful, and I'm proud of you for doing that, because I know it's hard out there when you're trying to give love and understanding, and you're dealing with a bunch of people who have their masks on, who are used to fighting and to giving insult for insult and eye for an eye, and you just have to sort of drop the little eyes that right, the little eye for an eye, drop it and see what you can do that is positive and constructive. But let us talk about what it might be like if maybe you weren't positive and constructive. Maybe what you've done is created karma. And so I like to talk about karma because a lot of people know about karma, general aspects of it. And so just so you know, the Law of One kind of defines karma as when you act in consciously unloving ways. So I'll say that again. Karma is when you're acting in consciously unloving ways. So it's not necessarily, you kind of have to use your own measure stick as to whether you're being consciously unloving or not. But really, in your mind, you know what is loving and what is not. And when you choose to put that love aside and to, sort of give eye for an eye, hate for hate, slight for slight, then, there's a possibility you might be creating karma. And so what is the solution to karma? How do we alleviate karma? Because when we have karma with other selves, often we are, kind of going to be stuck in third density, and we would like to resolve our karma, absolve our karma, and we do that through forgiveness. And so Ra so eloquently puts it in 34.5, that session. They state, both self and any involved other self may at any time through the process of understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness ameliorate these patterns. This is true at any point in an incarnative pattern. Thus, one who has set in the motion of an action may forgive itself and never again make that error. This also breaks or stops what you call karma. End of quote. And so I would like you to know that through forgiveness, you can ameliorate your karma. And often I will find actually that when I have little issues with other people who I'm holding on to some hate, or I guess is just an easy way to put it, or some friction in my heart, and I'm holding on to it in my heart, I will often find that these people will present themselves in my everyday life. Not in my everyday life, but honestly, I've been on, this was a couple of years ago, I was on a little vacation, and I was somewhere 6 hours away from home, and I run into at the skate park this person who I kind of had a little bit of, let's say, karma with. And so that was a weird coincidence, right? Coincidence? There's not really any coincidences, my friends. There is meaning in things. And so often I'll find I'm given the opportunity to ameliorate that karma. And it doesn't even mean that I necessarily have to bring up the specific event and talk about it and talk about forgiveness in a very conscious way. Sometimes it just is talking with the other person, being friendly and honest and loving with them in a way that they kind of understand that you no longer are worried about that thing that you were worried about before. You're not holding on to it. You don't hate them. You are a loving being, and they'll see that in you, and you'll often see that in them as they grow and learn. And nobody wants to have karma with each other. It's more than just the petty child that lives within us. Sometimes, needs time. We often need time to forgive ourselves and to forgive others. And that is fine and fair, and you shouldn't chastise yourself if you're not able to get over something right away and to forgive somebody right away. Sometimes it's okay. You just need to feel it out. It's a part of accepting and forgiving other selves is also about accepting yourself and your emotions in the way that you feel, and you need to work with them in a way that allows you to make it to a point where you are able to forgive purely or honestly, let's say, not just pretend and say that you forgive each other for the sake of, oh no, I don't want to get stuck in their density. I want to move on. I want to be a higher spiritual being. As it were, you are human, my friend, and with this human body comes human emotions and feelings, and so it's okay if you're not a perfect person at all times. We make mistakes, but like they say, thus, one who has set in the motion an action may forgive itself and never again make that error. And to me, that is forgiveness. You realize you've made a mistake, you own up to it, and you do your best to forgive yourself and to forgive others, and hopefully you then feel a little lighter, a little more freer from the burden of catalyst and consciousness, and you can breathe and keep going on to the next thing, which is likely to be another other self who is going to trigger you. So I want to also talk a little bit about protection, but protection from both angles, and so I'm going to talk about how you don't have protection and that you do have protection. Isn't that the way? Whenever there is paradox, my friends, that's how you know you are getting close to a spiritual truth, in that paradox is sort of solved by understanding both sides of it, okay? So I'll just read you the sort of no protection part first. So in session 99.8, Ross states, those who choose separation or the left-hand path, and that's not you, I hope. I'm hoping that you're on the right-hand path of service to others and unity, not separation. Sorry, let me restart the quote. Those who choose separation, that being the quality most indicative of the left-hand path, are protected from other selves by a strength and sharpness equivalent to the degree of transformation which the mind has experienced in the negative sense. Those upon the right-hand path, or positive path, have no such protection against other selves, for upon the path the doughty seeker shall find many mirrors for reflection in each other self it encounters. End of quote. So you see, we don't really have any protection from other selves when you're trying to accept and love and understand other people, because why? Well, I don't know, it makes sense to me. You're open to other selves. You're open to understanding them and trying to love them, and they may be out to hurt you or to hold up a harsh mirror in front of your face or whatever it may be. So sort of like you are susceptible to other selves and the mirrors that they're going to hold up, and it might not be particularly easy, and it can cause confusion in ourselves, especially when we get false accusations from other selves, but it's a constant source of catalyst for us. Whereas on the left-hand negative path, they see other selves and catalyst that comes their way as this needs to be controlled. Like, okay, something has been done to me, somebody has slighted me, how shall I slight them in a way that allows me to gain control of this situation? So that would be a negative path, right? But we are on the positive acceptance, love and understanding path. So we don't seek to gain control over people. We seek to love them. We seek to understand them. And through understanding and loving them, hopefully there's transformation. And at the very least, because I know I've dealt with a few narcissists in my time, and I know to use that word, some people don't like that, but just a generality of a narcissist person who, no matter how much you try to love and understand them, they will do everything they can to make things difficult for you, to control you, etc., etc. And so what I guess my advice is in that is that you accept sometimes that this other person maybe isn't ready. They're not ready to be loved. They're not ready to be understood. They're, whatever it may be, but you can at least find some clarity and some calmness in accepting them, that okay, that's who they are. And I know a lot of us want to be healers and we want to try to help everyone, and so I will just warn you that sometimes you can't help everyone, okay? Everyone has their own free will, and with that free will, they will choose as they will choose. You can offer catalyst to the other self, and if they deny that, opportunity, that offering that you have given them, that is their choice. But you don't need to be so hard on yourself that you're not able to help somebody. Sometimes, or all the time, people can only be helped when they want to be helped. And so I just want you to find a little bit of semblance in that, all is well. The Creator's will shall point them in the direction, in the time that these other selves seek to find their answers. And when they're ready, the catalyst will come their way. You don't need to control people into being loving and kind, etc. All you need to do is just learn to accept and love yourself, and learn to accept and love others beyond their distortions, beyond the masks that they wear, beyond the rudeness that they may give off to you. So now, however, okay, we still have protection, and this protection comes in the form of perception. It is a perception of unity, of oneness. I kind of said it a second ago, and maybe understanding, there's a higher will, the Creator's will, have faith in the Creator is going to take care of everything. It's not necessarily up to you to fix everything. And so when you can kind of see the unity of creation working in the way it does, you know that all is well, because it's sort of impossible for everything to not be well, because we are all one at all times. And this whole thing, that causes catalyst and issues in our life is illusion. And in the really larger sense of things, all is well. The Creator's mind is big enough to account for every single aspect that our small minds cannot. And so in session 95.24, Ra mentions, the seeker which has purely chosen the service to others path shall certainly not have a variant apparent incarnational experience. And I'm going to stop there for a second, shall certainly not have a variant apparent incarnational experience. In my opinion, that means that you're not necessarily going to have a totally, completely different experience as opposed to most people. Like, everyone has their catalyst, and even if you're a pure service to others on the path seeker, you're going to have catalyst. You're going to have difficulty with other selves, for example. There's nothing you can really do about it. Continuing on, Ross says, there is no outward shelter in your illusion from the gusts, flurries, and blizzards of quick and cruel catalyst. However, to the pure, all that is encountered speaks of the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. The cruelest blow is seen with an ambience of challenges offered and opportunities to come. Thusly, the great pitch of light is held high above such an one, so that all interpretation may be seen to be protected by light. End of quote. And so I don't know if I really need to elaborate on that. They say it rather eloquently, do they not? The cruelest blow is seen with an ambience of challenges offered and opportunities to come. So if something bad happens, right, you can focus on the bad thing, but you can also focus on, hey, this gives me an opportunity to serve. This problem, this issue, this distortion gives me an opportunity to serve an other self. And what are we here to do, my friends, but to serve each other and to learn from each other? And so when negative things happen and we get to, hopefully add some comfort, some love, some understanding to the situation, it can be a big relief to an other self. And so, know your power that you have the ability to create changes in consciousness, to lighten the planetary consciousness of this planet by being a good person and not worrying so much about all the negative things, but instead just, seeing what you can do in your immediate environment. You don't need to go out and save the world. The service is generally in front of your face at all times. All you have to do is just look out for it, especially when you sort of wake up in the morning with a conscious, I seek to serve. I promise you, my friend, the service shall fall in your lap, or at least the opportunities to serve shall fall in your lap. But careful what you ask for, because sometimes when I started to do that, I would often go, oh, really? I have to do this? But it's what I asked for. And, over the time, it doesn't become like a difficult thing. It just becomes easy. Just becomes a part of life. You're sort of lazy, childlike consciousness, that's that voice inside your head that kind of goes, do I have to do that? Like, that's not my responsibility. That voice gets a little quieter, and the more that you seek to do well and do some action which will show you that what you're doing is right, and it will give you feedback, and the creator, this illusion, this creation, whatever you want to call it, will give you feedback to the rightness of your actions. Sort of a generality, but those who serve, it shall be returned tenfold. And just, there's sometimes a little bit of a time lag, I warn you with that. So I was talking about, bad things happening, and so this kind of came up, this quote, as I was searching through the material for the Other-Selves keyword, and I thought this was something good that we could end this on. It's regarding worrying about events, because, aren't we people who love a good event? We love a good show, don't we? We love when the curtains open and we go, oh, yeah, look at that, oh, wow. So regarding events, when really the events aren't anything, my friends. It's about Other-Selves. It's about Other-Selves. It's not about events. And so in session 50.5, Ross says, those aware of evolution and desirous in the very extreme of attaining the heart of love and the radiance which gives understanding, no matter what the lessons programmed, they have to do with Other-Selves, not with events. They have to do with giving, not receiving. For the lessons of love are of this nature both for positive and negative. Those negatively harvestable will be found at this time endeavoring to share the love of self. In other words, the love of service to self. Continuing on, there are those whose lessons are more random due to their present inability to comprehend the nature and mechanism of the evolution of mind, body, and spirit. Of these, we may say that the process is guarded by those who never cease their watchful expectation of being of service. There is no entity without help, either through self-awareness of the unity of creation or through guardians of the self which protect the less sophisticated mind, body, spirits from any permanent separation from unity while the lessons of your density continue. End of quote. So they talk about how, this life isn't about events, it is about Other-Selves. The lessons that we have come here to learn, they are to deal with Other-Selves, not to deal with specific events. So as we talk about harvest and the next coming density and how it's going to play out, in my opinion, and Ra often hints at this, is that is transient information. In other words, it's not infinite. It's only of this small moment that it's of importance to you. But in the infinity of time, think about going long way out after you die. Imagine if you've had 100 incarnations. Are you going to remember every single event? Or are you just going to be remembering the love that you've created with Other-Selves and yourself? I think that's what is infinite, right? So we don't want to focus on the finite events. We want to focus on what is infinite and forever, and love is forever. This creation is a creation which is centered on love. Love created free will created light created the universe, and we are here, playing with light and doing the dance because that's what we wanted to do in order to learn. And so we are here learning those lessons by dealing with Other-Selves. I shouldn't say dealing with Other-Selves, by learning to love Other-Selves and thus love ourself and love the distortions of ourselves and the distortions of Other-Selves, so that we may become a lighter being, not burdened by the heavy catalyst of third density, having to deal with all the muck and the grime down here and being stuck in the soil. We wish to spread our roots throughout the soil and bloom into a wonderful flower of love, of radiance, of the heart of, what do they say here? Attaining the heart of love and the radiance which gives understanding. Does that not sound like a much better deal? I think so. And then they mention that, in the last half of that paragraph about, there's less sophisticated seekers or Other-Selves who basically just don't understand the mechanisms of the evolution of mind, body, spirit, right? Most people have no idea about, these law of one principles, the spiritual philosophy about growth and love and understanding. And so those people aren't without help, right? That's why I was kind of saying before, like, you don't always have to worry so much about the other selves and whether they're failing or succeeding in your eyes. Their process is guarded by unknown people, unknown seekers, unknown whatever you'd like to call them, unknown entities. It's a busy universe out there, to my understanding. There are a lot of beings out there, and a lot of people with sort of jobs where they seek to protect us, and to protect us from being permanently separated from the unity of creation, until we come to a point within ourselves where we're able to sort of protect ourselves, if it were. Once we come to know, then it is our responsibility to act appropriately, but those who don't know how to act appropriately, and so grace of the Creator shall give them grace, and the catalyst shall be offered to them in hopes that they pick up the baton and begin the race, as it were. But it's worth mentioning that none of us are without help. I also think to myself, sometimes when I'm having a bad time, you got to ask for help. I don't know who you're asking. Ask the Creator, ask your guides, I specifically make a request that those in service to the love and light of the one infinite Creator, in service to others, in service to all, may you please help to protect me and show me the way, and so I may be a better person and be a better server of others, and understand myself and others, and please help. I'm open to synchronicities. I'm open to messages. Please show me the way. And when you do ask for help, sometimes, once again, there's a bit of a time lag, but often you will get help in some form or some way, and so just don't feel like you're completely alone, because I know how overwhelming it can be with dealing with other people. I know I tried to make it sound kind of fun and cheerful throughout the podcast, but I understand the burden that can lay on your heart, especially when you want to do well for someone and they are in a self-destructive attitude, and you try to hold up the mirror for them over and over and over again, and they constantly persist in their sort of self-destructive ways. Yeah, I know, but what are you going to do about it, right? You just keep trying, but to the point that you're sort of exhausting yourself and it's taking a toll on you. Sometimes it is wise to think of the love for the self, because the love that you have for yourself is indicative of the sort of purity of love that you may have for other selves, and so you need to also love yourself. It's not selfish to love yourself, because you're still thinking of other people, but sometimes you need to make that stand of I need to practice self-love in this aspect, because otherwise I'm not doing what I'm asking of other people, right? I'm asking other people to love and accept and understand themselves, and so I need to be the example that I wish to see in the world, and I need to love myself enough to say, other self, I cannot deal with you right now or anymore. I'm exhausted, and so I love you, thank you, but I can't, you're going to have to figure this out by yourself. So this isn't advice that goes one way or the other. I'm just trying to give a little bit of both. I think often you are more likely to keep trying to hold up the mirror, keep trying to see how maybe you could even offer better catalysts to other people. You can become a better server, a better seeker, a better representative of love and light, and that is part of our lessons and what we are here to do. So I hope that helps to guide you a little bit in dealing with other selves, in understanding that it's not easy. We're in Shadowland. We do not know each other's intentions. We do not know each other's motives. You will be proved wrong and wrong again the more that you assume. But at the same time, right, I like to be of paradox. sometimes you gotta respect your own intuitions and your own, understandings that you've learned over the years, and find the balance between those two, right? Where is the line between self-love, your intuitions and assumptions of other selves, and where is that line between that and true understanding of the other self? So, sometimes you go into a situation and you may have your suppositions about them and the event, and then once you have sort of open and true communication with the other self, you may find that you weren't totally on the mark, and so wonderful, you've learned something, you've gained, you've grown. Hopefully the other person has grown as well. You can then be a better server for them and for yourself, and that's what we're here to do. So my friends, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you. I really thank you all for listening and for joining my Patreon. That does help to allow me to freely give all of this information. I don't like to put it behind a paywall. So if any of you would like to join that, you can go to www.theoneinfinitecreator.com and just scroll down to the support section and assist me in serving other selves, and so that I can keep doing this. And so I thank you all for that. I thank you for your time. I thank you for dealing with other selves with grace and with love and with understanding. It is a wonderful thing to see in somebody when they can drop the slight for slight and seek to serve instead. And whenever you're lost, whenever you're not sure what to do, ask yourself, how may I serve? Thank you, my friends. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. I'm happy to be back with the podcast. Please share it around. Give it a like if you appreciate this or if you've gained anything from it. I seek to serve, and I would like to get this out to as many seekers as possible because I know it is tough times out here. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.